While it is true, I also agree with Kyle that I'm also a proud Carolinian. I've also represented the university, but it would have been better if there were tangible, concrete items that Kyle would have mentioned, which the USC students here in Talamban or in South Campus actually felt or actually received from Kyle. So,
Good afternoon. Oh, Kuya Zach. Kuya Zach. I would like to ask you, since it had been a recurring theme from the entire stand party, that your program is really about breaking down the walls of apathy, right? So can you cite just at least one specific and concrete program that can actually do that? And do you think the chances of that actually being successful in terms of coaxing the students out would be higher? Just one concrete program.
One concrete program is the info dissemination. However, I believe that is not enough. That is why we have the three banner projects, top orgs, SO subsidies, and past concerns, because we need to empower the students so that they will go to pero wala ka limon hanga. We have to empower the students, but Stand acknowledges that education must not be commercialized, it must be mass-oriented. That is why we empower again the students that they go to school. But in the end, when they're empowered, they stand for student rights. So, thank you very much.
I'm sorry to say, Kuya Zach, that I really could not really find a connection. Allegedly, if we really accept that there really is an apathy, I think you misinterpreted what I said earlier, is that apathy is really a symptom. The real problem, as Lucille said, is the difference among the Carolinians, the different interests. So I think it would have been better, Zach, as what we always say, is that you really put the concrete where you cater to the different needs of the students rather than just information dissemination. Kuya Zach, I'd like to ask, what is your take, you and your party's take on the Saba issue?
Well, actually, I must admit that in answering a question like this, it requires rigorous study and research. Being a scientific person, being a student of law, I cannot just give out my opinion on the matter, which requires rigorous study and research. It would be stupid. It would be a mockery for me to tell you something, an answer which I cannot really support with evidences and facts. So again, I cannot answer that question, but doesn't mean I cannot be a very good president to the Carolinian students. So,
it is possible to answer that. I think it would have been better, Zach. Although yes, it is hard to answer the question, but you can just simply say by answering based on the Constitution. The Constitution, there is actually an issue with sovereignty and of course, or case of ownership. But you can always say that the stand of the Philippines is that war is never an instrument to achieving policies like that. So what would have been nice is that your stand would be to implement democracy or peaceful negotiations rather than the bloodbath experience.
Personally, no, I think in answering that question, we have to make sure that we understand the context pretty well. I think personally, from SPP, when you talk about the Saba issue, it's actually something which affects all of us, diba, as Filipinos. And I think if ever we are in the SSC, we make sure that we don't just cater to what we need inside the classroom. Because if we go outside the four walls of the classroom, we are ultimately affected by the Saba issue. So as much as possible, let's not be detached and let's not say that that's not our problem, you're just in the SSC. However, I think what the SSC can do, for example, is come up with a communication which essentially states the stand of San Carlos. Being the representatives of the students, we should not be detached. Thank you.
The question means, from what we understand, the question asks for how can the SSC be more visible? Thank you.
I think personally, no, in answering that, I think fortunate enough that when we did our preparation for the campaign, the SPP always had been consistent with its programs. Ever since before, every time it decides to embark on a campaign, it makes sure that it has already a calendar of activities for each month. And if ever they actually get elected in the SSC, then essentially every year they actually strive to do that. So I think the main problem that we need to address, given that kind of question, is that SSC has always been there to provide certain programs and projects for the students. It's just that there is just that particular wall of apathy which Stan and Tingog has conceded to be a bad thing. So I think the most viable answer to that is just greater information dissemination. It actually might sound very, very cliche, but if you constantly try to reach out to the students, sooner or later they would give in. So that's just how we do it. Thank you.
In Tingog, we've already mentioned the platforms, how we really envision that the student body, the SSC would be felt by the students, and that's why we put platforms like Wi-Fi, information dissemination, Unite, so that we can unite the different departments and colleges of the university. That's why we have the Pasigarbol, something, and also we also have the other projects, like we want to sit down with the different student organizations, whether they be recognized or not recognized. So that is how we make our presence felt, by involving the students, as what Lucille said, 17,000 for 17,000, not just 17,000 for the SSC counselors, the president, the vice president, and of course the appointed officials. So that is how we make our presence felt by the platforms proposed by Tingog Carolinian Party.
I only have 3 answers. First, I stand on my ground that what must be done is to break the walls of apathy. Second, what must be done is to strengthen students and student organizations. And third, projects, programs, and policies of the Supreme Student Council must be inclusive. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I have a question for SPP. I understand that you have a platform for the shuttles which will go not only around TC but also to the other campuses as well. Now, as a part of the progressive student population of the university, we were able to ask drivers about this, about their flight. You have been informed na 5 pesos na fare, gamay rigid kaayo for them. Now, I'd like to ask, can you do anything for these drivers? Does this activity benefit them as well? Or what can this platform do to help not only the students but also them?
Actually, to be completely honest, when we actually came up with our programs, we just felt that we needed to come up with certain banner programs that might potentially benefit the students. However, in SPP, we don't actually believe that if you're the president, then essentially you have to do everything, right? Which is why we actually delegated that to 2 of our counselors. If they can actually answer, then they can cite the specifics. But what is important is that we come up with certain concrete programs. And if ever everything materializes according to plan, then we can hammer out the details later on. This is not just something that we can implement right off the bat or just in a heartbeat. It needs consultation because we recognize that a lot of stakeholders are involved. Which is why, if ever they get elected in the council and they can propose that, then the necessary preparations, communications, and dialogues can actually take place. Because we admit it's not actually it's not very simple, but just because it's complex, it does not mean that it cannot be done. We believe in that. Thank you.